I'm going to take your line. Happy December, Nestor.
Happy December, Travis. Happy December, Andrea. She's behind the scenes, everybody. This business is interesting.
Right?
I think that's kind of today's topic.
Yes, that's a good foray into it.
Yeah, so I think the premise of our conversation today is just kind of share some stories about the real estate industry, what we've seen, what we haven't seen.
Actually, what I was sharing with you before this meeting was kind of the impetus for it. Because I thought, there's an interesting situation, right?
Yep.
And I thought, all of us as realtors have had these interesting situations.
We have.
Whether they be funny or terrifying or tell a story about real estate and give it a bright light.
So you just brought something up to...
All right, hit it before you forget it.
So I won't tell the story, but kind of going along the lines of what you're talking about. So I was just at a celebration at lunch with Orange County Association of Realtors. And I'm sitting at a round table with a bunch of people, and we're all having a conversation, and somebody walks by and starts pointing at me and is having a conversation with somebody else.
Oh, that's always an uncomfortable feeling.
Right? So I just laughed, and it was obvious that they were saying something about me and that they were pointing, and no, I'm not famous, so they weren't asking for my autograph.
Was it an accusatory point?
It was a little harsh. So I looked at them and I said, it wasn't me, I'm positive.
I love that.
And
that breaks the ice.
Yeah, everybody at the table was looking at me. I said, I don't know, obviously there's something going on there. And she pulled me aside after and she said, you were in a meeting with me and helped me out in a situation, and she started telling me about the situation, and I honestly didn't remember. But it was kind of interesting when she was there and that whole thing. I was like, did I do something that I wasn't supposed to? In this particular situation, it turned out that I had actually helped the person in the past, and they were sharing that story with their friend.
Nice.
But anyway. It's kind of what we're going to talk about today. A
little bit. You want me to go to the other end of the spectrum?
Yeah.
So
we've been there.
I have door knocking stories.
Okay.
And there was this one house. It was kind of like the Boo Radley house, right? It's like, oh, it looked scary. It was all unkempt, and I'm like. And I always said to myself, well, Travis, it's only one house you're going to have to skip. Is it really that big deal out of 1,000 doors you're eventually going to knock on?
Right.
And I would say to myself, nope, you got to do it. And I force myself to go up. And I knock on the door. So I'm already a little timid. And the door opens, and this guy's standing there in his T-shirt and his undershorts.
Okay.
And I'm like... oh, this could go so many ways.
Right.
And it was awesome. I mean, he was just a really nice guy, and apparently he opens the door in his underwear all the time. We had a chat. I didn't say anything about it. And they were people that I became very good professional clients with. They still live in the house. They almost sold it at one point, but it was just made more sense for them to stay there. And so they're still there, and they're great people. But
nice.
Boy, what an introduction to someone, huh?
So if you've been in this business long enough and shown enough properties, you will walk in on somebody not wearing enough clothes.
Yes.
So I remember walking in showing, this was second year I think in the business, and I walked into a property and they were home, rang the doorbell, was with my clients, and the lady was in the kitchen and she yelled, come on in. And we had called, we made an appointment, so they were expecting us, and walk in, and this family was a husband and wife. They were nudist.
Oh, Lord.
Yes.
I didn't see that coming.
And sat there, and she came out of the kitchen completely nude, and I'm sitting there like, oh my.
Is this in Orange County?
This was in Orange County.
Wow.
Yes. And told us to take a tour of the property, and I remember how uncomfortable that was the entire time I was showing the property. They were completely fine. I was uncomfortable. My
You have any
clients were
questions up there? Nope, we're fine.
Well, it was hilarious because we were talking. I was talking with my clients, and she could overhear us having a conversation. And she says, "Oh, sit down on the couch." And my clients said, "No, thank you."
So where you sit?
Yeah, we got to go. But
Wow.
yeah, I mean, there's crazy things always happen in this business.
You really trumped mine, but I'll tell mine real quick. The closest in that regard was scheduled showing, knock on the door, no one answers. I open it up. I give what I always make a joke with my clients. Okay, now you're going to hear my mantra. "Hey, Realtor, anybody home?" Like,
Right.
you yell it.
Exactly.
Nobody comes out. We kind of start going into the house. All of a sudden, this guy's like, "What? He comes down the stairs, soaking wet, with the towel around his waist.
Was in the shower.
Apparently, it was in the shower.
Yep.
I'm like,
So-
yeah. And apparently, there was a discommunication between the spouses. Not real comfortable.
Nope. So you'll see it. It'll happen. Gosh.
I had a dangerous one once. Sorry to.
Oh
interrupt
no.
it.
Likewise, that's where I was going.
Went to preview. Well, this is. I don't think you're gonna. I think you're gonna be surprised by this one. Go to preview. Open up the door. Do my thing. Announce myself. Go walking through the house, and this was the weirdest house. It was in Lake Forest, and it was just kind of went down into the ground almost. It was almost like there was a basement to it. And I'm like, I almost didn't go down there, but I'm like, well, I got to go see. So I go down, and it's dark, and I kind of come around in the corner into what's sort of a bedroom, and there's this little kid in there, just looking at me, like was he behind curtains or something? It was hard to see him because it was dark and everything. I'm like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize somebody was in here. And I'm like, I don't like this situation at all. And I literally just got the heck out of there because being in a house, with a young child, no one's
Right.
around, dangerous for me.
Exactly.
But man, who leaves a kid home alone
Right,
like
right.
that? That freaked me out.
So it's we walked in with clients and they had kids, and there was a gun sitting on the kitchen table.
Oh.
And I sit there and I'm like, somebody forgot to put something away. But, we're talking about this, and, in all seriousness, these are things that we have to have conversations with about clients, being prepared.
Yeah.
Conversations with sellers. I remember this one. I had to make at that time, it was a very unpleasant phone call that I made to a buyer's agent who had just shown the property because she wasn't keeping control of her clients, and they meant absolutely no harm. The kids meant absolutely no harm, but it was, my clients were elderly. Both clients were in their 90s, and they were home in the property, and he had opened the door, and he let them see the house. It was a pretty big house, and he excused himself. He said, "I have to go to the restroom." Well, he excused me, and he went upstairs. Their kids had followed him, and they hid in the closet right outside the bathroom. He opens the door, and the kids jump out and scream at him as a joke, which, to a 90-year-old,
Not a joke.
Not a joke at all. But it's sometimes there's a good, there's a bad, and there's everything in between in our business of the stuff that we see. And unfortunately, sometimes the stuff we see is unpleasant too, and we gotta, have stern conversations of like, hey, and kids meant no harm.
Yeah.
They absolutely meant no harm. But somebody could have seriously gotten hurt in that situation.
Died. Heart attack.
Yeah, exactly. So, but crazy stuff goes on in our business.
Yeah. Let's see. I've had some interesting ones. These are more actually are kind of a positive thing about their business, like things that happen that are great. I was a big geographical farmer.
Okay.
And a couple times, I remember once I was just walking down the street delivering flyers. This truck goes by, and I knew who the guy was. I don't remember if I waved or not. I don't think I waved. And he goes down, he makes a U-turn, and he comes back. And I'm like, oh, what's going on here? And he rolls down the window. So let me clarify that. I know of him. I didn't really know him. He rolls down his window. "You Travis Barron?" I'm like, "Yes, I am. Give me your card. We're thinking, we're looking at what we're going to do here." And I didn't have a card, but I had my flyer, so I gave him one of those. I'm like, "Hey, how about that? Someone actually recognized me at my farm and came up to you." So for all of those of you farming and getting a little frustrated, got to be there, got to be present. Would I have missed that opportunity if I wasn't present in my farms?
And I can't stress enough that people do not realize how much people are watching us or looking. And geographic farmer, tell me this hasn't happened to you. You're out there if you were a geographic farmer and you were out there in the neighborhood, more than likely you got into a routine where you were there pretty much the same time, same day.
I scheduled it, yeah.
Yep. When you were off on your time, you ever have somebody come to you and say,
check in on you?
Yeah, where are you?
No, I haven't.
I remember going up to a door and she was, you're late.
For what?
Exactly. And you're always here at this time on this day.
Wow.
And, you know, the people are watching and the people are keeping track of what we're doing, and they notice those things. And that's an impact on our business.
Good or bad.
Exactly.
Also.
Exactly. But that's that consistency and one of the things that's really important in our business is making sure we're consistent. And she consciously was paying attention to it. When you really think about it, how many people are subconsciously paying attention to that or noticing that where it's registering for them? This particular person just was there and pointed out, hey, you're tardy today. But yeah, I miss those days of the door-to-door I enjoyed it. I didn't enjoy it in the beginning. You get a lot of people that are uncomfortable and things like that. You can feel those conversations going on where it wasn't fun for me. But once you start to establish yourself in a community, it's a very pleasant, welcoming.
So I was walking down the street, doing my door knocking. I knocked on this one door, don't know the people from Adam.
Right.
And the lady opens up the door and she's like, the husband opens up the door. He's like, oh my gosh, Travis. Hey, honey, it's Travis. Get out here. We were just talking about you. Yeah, we're getting ready to list our house, and we wanted you to come over and talk to us about it.
Right.
I was like, oh, wow. So the guy in the truck listed and sold the house. This one listed and sold their house.
Nice.
If I wouldn't have been knocking on that door that day,
right,
they may have told a friend, oh yeah, we're going to call Travis. Oh, I got a great person. You should call him instead of Travis. Or maybe they're a realtor themselves. And having that activity going and just running into those opportunities.
Well, how many times have we seen it, even when the odd opportunity doesn't lead to something right then and there, that just taking action is leading to something somewhere else where business just shows up?
I believe it. It's a force.
Right? It's
you
crazy.
Never know. If I wouldn't have been putting my effort in that farm, I never would have found that buyer and closed the deal over here. I believe that thoroughly.
Previewing 101, you're out there previewing. I don't have a buyer that's looking in this price range, and for some crazy, strange reason, somebody calls you. And I was just talking to an agent yesterday, and she got a phone call from a client. It was actually a referral. She got a referral from a past client, having a conversation with the people. Yeah, these are the communities that we want to live in, and this is the area we're thinking of living in. And 20 minutes later, the client called them back and said, hey, we just saw this property online. We think that this is a good fit. She had looked at that property 3 days before.
Gonna look like a genius.
Exactly. The conversation is so much easier for them to have. And when she was looking at that property 3 days before, didn't know about this, but the universe just works that way.
Yeah.
Preview people.
The other side of geographic farming and door knocking, because this is where we're running into a lot of people. I think that's why a lot of our stories come from this.
Right.
I had one where I always had a hard time getting started door knocking. That first door or two was, I would just drive around forever and just finally have to pull over and do it. One time I see a lady's house that I know. I'm like, I know her. She's nice. This will be perfect. I'll say hi and I'll get on my way. I go over, I knock on the door. She opens it up, looks at me, goes, oh no, and slams the door in my face. Literally the only time I've ever had a door slam in my face was by someone who I knew. And I was like, I literally went back, got in my car, said, I'll just do this another day. The next year, I come back around that same plot, because I'd always do my farm. I'm like, Travis, it's one door. Do you really want to knock on that door today, or do you just want to let it go? And I said, forget it. I'm going up to that door. Husband answers, nicest guy ever. We have a chat. I'm like, what a difference a day makes.
It does. And we have to understand when people are saying no, they're not necessarily saying no to us, and we don't know what the situation is behind the door on the other side that particular day. I mean, numerous numerous phone calls. Stop mailing me, stop leaving crap on my door, stop coming to visit me. And those same people call 3 months later or 4 months later. When are you doing that event? Because I don't get your stuff anymore and I know you have something coming up. Can I get back on your list? And you just never know. They had a bad day that particular day, something happened, you happen to show up when it's going on and they needed to take it out on somebody and we happen to be the ones that they took it out on. That's life. Can't take it personal. Personally, in our industry, I consider it a blessing, because that's where it separates the people that take this business seriously and will have success, and will push some of those people out, and will basically, it will eliminate some of our competition, because they will let things like that affect them and won't do this business anymore. So,
absolutely.
So when you see it, just keep in mind they did that to somebody else and probably put somebody else out of business.
Yeah.
So.
And even just being prepared for whatever comes up. And I have another example of this one. I was farming a brand new development. It was like half built.
Right.
But I'm like, dude, I'm getting in here early. I remember I went up, this guy came out of his front door, and I said, hey, how you doing? Travis and Remax Premier Realty. Gave him whatever I was handing out. He goes, hey, excuse me. He goes, what are you wasting your time in here for? None of us are going to sell. Can't you see that half these homes aren't even built? The rest of us just moved in. I was ready. I totally understand where you're coming from, but you know what? Unfortunately, there's death, there's divorce, there's relocation.
Yep.
There are all sorts of instances where people, need assistance. And so I'm here to, let people know that I'm going to help them if they need it. And he goes, that's a good point. Thank you. Walks back in his house. So I educated him and never sold that house, but I bet you I would have got the appointment if they were thinking of selling, because he'd be like, that guy was pretty smart actually. But I don't say so myself.
Have you ever had the black sedans show up? So I was talking with, this is not my story, I'm sharing somebody else's story that they shared with me. She was showing property, and she decided to meet her clients. They wanted to look at a particular house, and she says, I'll meet you at the Starbucks around the corner from the property and we'll go from there. And so she got to the Starbucks and she went inside, got a coffee. She was sitting outside the Starbucks. Her clients showed up and they were sitting there going over the paperwork about where they were about to go see. And the black sedans pull up, guns drawn, come out of the car, arrest her clients and put them in the back of the car and drive away.
Did she ever see him again?
Never saw him again. So,
they may have saved her life.
They may have. So no, I'm assuming black sedan, so I'm assuming something federal. Some type of thing that was done, money laundering or something of that nature, or something down that direction. But yeah, she never saw him again. She does not know why they were picked up. But
that's totally crazy.
Yeah, so that was an interesting one. But she was sharing that story. I was calling around asking agents, craziest thing that ever happened to them. And she had won the challenge that day.
Yeah, I certainly don't win the craziest, but had some interesting situations.
Absolutely.
How about I finish up with one last one?
Absolutely.
We're going along here. I'm going to steal this one from my father. You've probably heard it. He was a prolific geographical farmer. That was his bread and butter. And he always tells a story about this one guy in the neighborhood that he would come up and the guy would come out and toe the line of the driveway, that's his property. What are you doing out here, Tom? Get out of here. I don't need any of your materials. Why are you doing this? Nobody wants your stuff. What are you doing? Don't ever leave anything on my porch. It was like he was just constantly, every time he'd be out there, this guy was home, you got to be harassing him. He's like, okay, I get it. I'll pass you up, no problem. And he's like, well, there's one deal I'm never going to get. A couple months later, ring, ring. Hey, Tom, it's so-and-so. And gives him his address. He's like, oh, my God, this is the guy. Me and the old lady, we're getting hitched. We're moving out to Nevada. We need you to come over. And Tom's about selling the house. You never know.
You absolutely never know. Again, that goes back to you never know what the situation is. And, a lot of people want to do things on their terms.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's a very valid point.
And they don't want to feel like they're being manipulated into something or being sold on something, and they want to do it on their terms, but they like you, they appreciate you, but
Don't call me, I'll call you.
Exactly. Exactly.
But that doesn't mean you disappear. Like, he didn't
Correct.
go away. He was still there visible. Yeah, if you go away, if you take their word, and then you might have some trouble.
Exactly.
Just don't be a nuisance. Just be present. Anyways.
I would love to hear in the comments, if you guys listen to this video or listen to this podcast, I would love to hear in the comments your craziest story.
Yeah, crazy or a victory.
Yeah.
Or, yeah, anything along those lines. Love to hear them.
Thank you, guys.